right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order Policies and Priorities Committee meeting Monday, January 10th, 2022. Excuse me. Any additions to the agenda? Councillor Kirk.
I'd like to add P&G for discussion with council. That's in regards to the increase.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Lehman. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we will add P&G discussion 5.3. Okay, and I'd also like to propose an addition to the agenda for discussion about the snowmobile management plan that just was released before Christmas by the provincial government. Seconder, Councillor Majinski, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. So we'll add snowmobile discussion 5.4. Okay, thank you. Any other additions? All right, approval of the amended agenda. Recommendation, Councillor Lehman.
That all items on the January 10th, 2022 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as amended.
Seconder, Councillor Majinski. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes, 3.1. Recommendation, please, Councillor Norbury.
That the Monday, December 15th, 2021 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Kirby. Any errors or omissions? Council? Staff? Thank you.
15?
Okay.
15.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. 4.1, presentations and delegations. Tumbler Ridge Chamber of Commerce, Jerrilyn Kirk, to present the 2021 Community Grant Writers Report. I believe we have Jerrilyn on Zoom here. Hi there.
Hello.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us this evening, and the floor is yours.
I apologize, first of all, that the last time we tried this, there was no connection between where I was and the Zoom, so I had to put it off to now, but I'm happy to be here, and thank you for taking the time to invite me. I sent a report, and I'll just read a little bit of that, and then just open it up for questions, because really what I wanted to say is in the report. So I want to begin by thanking the District of Tumbler Ridge for their support of the Tumbler Ridge Chamber of Commerce over the last many years. First through the Visitor Center operations, and then through the annual fee for service for grant writing, and more recently the one-year fee for service for grant writing that we had in place for last year. 2021 was another year where many not-for-profit groups struggled, mainly due to the COVID restrictions. Event grants were not available in 2021, so that made some things more difficult. I contacted groups, but very few felt they had the capacity to meet all of the criteria and reporting necessary to meet the obligations of grants. I did more work with businesses last year and found and applied for many government grants for businesses. So that's all I basically had to say. If you wanted to ask questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, thank you very much, Council. Any questions? No. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Thank you, Jerrilyn, for calling in and giving us opportunity to ask you a couple of questions. I do have a couple for you. You mentioned in regard to nonprofits unable to meet criteria. Looking at your list, how many more nonprofits do you feel wanted to apply for grants that were unable to meet the criteria?
I'm really not sure how many would have liked to apply for grants. I'm sure there were a couple. Like often I'll do grants for the seniors and for the schools and stuff. But this year, because of COVID restrictions, a lot of people felt they just didn't have the capacity to meet those grants. I did speak to the community center to talk to them about applying for some of the NDIT grants, but again, I think there's a lot of change happening there, and they just weren't prepared to meet the regulations.
Council?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Thank you, Jerrilyn. I know it's hard to sort of read the tea leaves, but do you anticipate 2022 as being another slow year for grants?
Yeah, it is so hard to say. In the past, we've always applied for event grants for like the Emperor's Challenge, for GrisFest, for various events that were happening in the community with the community center, some of their events. And because of restrictions, we just haven't had those things happening. And so those grants have not been made available. So those are one pocket of grants that we haven't been eligible for because of that. I think that a lot of volunteers are just tired, and I think that probably as you all know, that COVID's taking a toll on people, and they just don't feel like putting another thing on their plate to deal with. So I don't know if 2022 will be different. We sure can hope. They're talking about maybe this summer things really opening up because Omicron will kind of have leveled things off. So I don't know though.
Okay, any follow-up? Councilor Kirk?
Executive Worship. Thanks for coming there. Thanks for being there, Jerry. I just have a couple questions in regards to the list you supplied. So 5, 6, and 7 are community futures regional relief. It was for 60,000, but paid back 40. What was that for?
So that was a government grant that was made available, and those are businesses, and so I didn't feel like to be putting their names in there for public viewing. But those were the government had a grant in place where you could apply for a grant, and then you had to pay back a portion of it. And if you paid back a portion of it, then you were forgiven the rest of it. So there were 3 businesses in the community that applied for that grant. They were awarded the $60,000 grant, all 3 of them, and they paid back the $40,000 and were able to keep a portion of that grant.
Okay. And that's what I thought. You helped them apply for that, or that's just listed as stuff that was given to our community?
No, I've been working with businesses to help them.
And then number 11, building community and building a multiple. I'm not sure what the rest of it's supposed to be. For 182,000. What's that for?
That's for the fairgrounds.
Just have one last one there. Running Provincial Park. It was approved, and it looks like a 61,900.
Right. That was for a community member who has a business, and they needed assistance in preparing I guess I'm not sure what to call it, a grant to run a provincial park, basically. And they were awarded that grant, so they will be running that provincial park.
Any other questions, Councilor? Council, any other questions? Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Thanks again, Jerrilyn, for your report provided. So the applications that you have that are still pending, when will those come to close? Or are they just grants that we just maybe are done?
No, the government one, the federal government one, that one's still, we're waiting. We've had communications with them and they just haven't made their decision. And I'm not sure when that's gonna happen. The business facade, that'll be in that Hugh area, I believe, that they'll be making the decision. So they're coming up. We had to apply for them early, even though they're technically not gonna be granted until the new year.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lehman?
And, Joanne, sorry, Councilor. Sorry.
That's all right.
Some of the ones that say pending have now been declined. So the CN Community Fund for $10,000, that was declined. And I think that part of the reason for that is because we don't have close ties as a community to CN. And the other one that was rejected was the accessibility project grant. That one was declined as well.
When you mention close ties to CN, what would you be referring to?
I'm not sure. I mean, we put in an application and it was a fairly solid application, but I think these organizations, like I sort of put in the later report, they have ideas about which way they're heading. Like I know with some grants, they'll open it up to everybody, but they have sort of specific organizations and types of organizations, like maybe children or education or something like that, that they're specifically targeting, but it's open to everybody. So this year yeah. So a community like, say Terrace, who's been doing a lot of work with CN, they may look at them more fondly, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, council?
But again, that's an assumption. I don't know for sure, but I know that grantors will often have specific programs in mind, and they open it up to everybody, but they're targeting certain things, different years, different objectives.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Ms. Kirk, do you work with the library as far as grants and grant applications?
I have in the past worked with the librarian to get some of the summer staffing, but a lot of the library specific grants are very library centric, so you would need to really have that in-depth knowledge of a library to write those grants. But I mean, I have worked with them before to do some of the summer student programming grants.
Okay. And do our nonprofits in the community, are they reaching out to you? Like, is everyone aware that you are the community grant writer? Or is it more? Is it more so? Is it more so you reaching out to the groups, or are the groups coming to you as well?
So what often happens, Mayor Bertrand, is that I will find a grant, and it will be, say, for a program of some sort, and I'll go, hey, this would be a great grant for such and such a group. That happened back when I was writing for the district a few years back, when I found a grant that I thought would really suit the gun club. And so I brought that, and I know they were applying to the district at the time for some funding, and I went to them and said, look, why don't we go about it this way? Instead of the district supplying you with funds, I can apply for this grant and we can see if you get those funds. And so they were granted those funds, and they ended up with, I think, around $60,000.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure and kind of bring more awareness that the district does have a community grant writer, and you are available if somebody is looking for help with funding there. So thank you very much. Any final questions, council? Okay, thank you very much for presenting this evening, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you. You guys have a great meeting.
Thank you. All right, moving on to reports. 5.1. Economic Development Model, Peace River Regional District. The Peace River Regional District is requesting feedback regarding the development of an economic development model. So just a little bit of explanation here. This report was given to the board at the Regional District to mull over and read over. We couldn't come to a consensus on what direction the board wanted to go, so now we're reaching out to all the municipalities to gain feedback and see if anyone is likes any of these ideas, or basically has a different idea possibly. So curious to know council's thoughts on this. Lots of information provided by the regional district with some history there. So as you know, may need a refresher, the ECDEV function was giving out grants that weren't supported by the letters of patent, basically the existing bylaw for that function. So that's why the ECDEV shut down late 2019, I believe it is. And we, as a board, we've been trying to strategize and figure out what direction ECDEV on a regional basis should look like. So really curious to hear what council's thoughts are. I can start. One of the models is a centralized ECDEV function at the regional district to take care of ECDEV for the entire region. I don't quite agree with that because all the municipalities already have ECDEV functioning within their municipalities, as well as the diversity of each municipality, I think would get very convoluted centralizing it at a regional district level. So I had suggested possibly that the regional district ECDEV function should complement and work with and possibly partner with the municipalities' ECDEV functions as well. So that was my thoughts on it anyway. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what you mentioned because, yeah, what sounds like you're suggesting is very reasonable. Yeah, give me a moment.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's a lot of information to digest, most definitely. I did ask for some previous years' contributions just to get an idea of what we have contributed, what it looked like in the past. Around the board table, a lot of the directors liked the opt-in, opt-out options that we had over the last 2 years, but unbeknownst to us, we weren't able to do that. So trying to figure out a way. So the biggest two contributions for our community was the museum and the geopark, roughly around $200,000 investment. We have moved forward to possibly creating a new service function for museum and geopark. The board last year voted in favor of moving forward to creating a bylaw and a referendum to ask the regional district residents if they would support a new function for those two organizations. So as far as, if we've been missing any other funding, not overly aware of besides small projects here and there, but those are the two big ones. And I'm hoping we're going to get some clear definition this year of whether or not that function is going to go through or not. And if it does, if it is successful, I think the goal is to have it ready for budget 2023. So, Councillor Kirk.
So is there not a way of aligning it like it used to be, where you could opt in and opt out? Is that? I know I went through the report that was supplied by staff, and it just seemed like when you go back and forth, that almost seems like what they're asking. Like, is there a way of the PRD going back to that division they had before? I mean, they do grant names now. Could they not look at doing the same kind of thing with that where it's a grant name? You can opt in and opt out.
Yeah,
right.
That's certainly an idea.
DAWSON CREEK or something that's doing something like the hockey there. You can opt into the grant name or you can opt out. Mm-hmm. Would that meet their? I'm not sure we used their terminology, but there's something looking like that. Like, kind of when I read it, it kind of seemed like that's kind of what they're looking like. And possibly being able to go back to that opt in and opt out.
That seems to be favorable amongst the board members. It's just we still have to create a new function for ECDEV. So within that function, I think this could certainly be an option, for the granting procedure for it. Yeah, absolutely. Good suggestion. I think that really is the most flexible and effective too. Councillor Nobre.
But the only problem with the opt-in, opt-out scenario was like sometimes you had three or four communities holding the bag for individual organizations. And like from what I understood, the opt-in, opt-out option was by our representative, mayor, was chosen by you. So essentially, if only Tumbler Ridge said, yes, we want to support this, Tumbler Ridge would be the one on the hook for paying for it. So like that is something that concerns me when it comes into the opt-in, opt-out. As well as I remember when we got our list of who was paying for things, organizations would pull out afterwards when they realized, oh, wait a second, Fort St. John's on the hook for $100,000. And now it bumps down to, a couple, right? So I'm not a huge fan of the opt-in, opt-out scenario.
The previous model was definitely flawed. There was some, within the negotiation, like I brought all those spreadsheets back to council and showed everything. It wasn't myself deciding. I definitely wanted council's input on that. But there was flaws there, most definitely. And when you did get into that situation, when there's only two of you trying to fund, that usually meant that it would be taken away because it just wasn't feasible. You still had that option as a municipality or a director to opt out if it isn't feasible, right? So, Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. With the regional district, do they consider the museum and the geopark a regional asset? Because this is where I find the opt-in, opt-out. I feel that it is a regional asset, and that's where you'd like to see those two become a line item. And maybe it's just a funding number where, you come in and there's different, if they could set a number and it sticks with that, because sometimes over the years, you come in and they ask for different amounts. I think a set number, but with the opt-in and opt-out, it was before, the way it was set up is you voted on it, and if the vote was carried, then everybody was in and it was divided between.
Yeah, that wasn't opt-in, opt-out.
That's right, it was a voting in, so now opt-in, opt-out. I don't know if I'd go that way. I just think that it's a higher cost to certain municipalities, and then you're just gonna get everybody opting out.
Yeah, and opting in and opting out, or the contribution by each group or each director's area is based on a assessment value too, right? So, like for example, whenever we opted into a function or to support a grant, we paid roughly about 2% to the entire region. That's roughly our contribution. The larger municipalities in Area B up north of Fort St. John, they have a larger assessment, so they have a larger percentage. So yeah, our percentage is roughly around 2%. So that's based on assessment. And to what you were saying, Councillor Kirby, you're right, it does need to become a line item. I completely agree with you that it is a regional asset, both organizations. And that's why I've really tried to focus on the function. And this function is being voted in referendum on region-wide. So it would be, everybody would opt into it. It was a very close vote to move it forward, though. It was 7-5. So it's certainly not a done deal. And it's certainly open for resident and public feedback with the referendum as well. So it's certainly not set in stone, but I think that's, realistically the way forward is to have that security. Councillor Kirk.
Yeah, and what was the majority consensus on, where were people looking at going? What was the favorite choice between the board?
With that depth?
Yeah.
It was very divided, and that's why we decided to come back to the municipalities to get councils, because some believe that we don't need an ECDEV function, some believe a central ECDEV throughout for the entire region could be a possibility, and some just didn't know. So it's very divided, and that's why we've reached out to all municipal councils to get their feedback. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think it's hard for us as a municipality to get our heads around this because we've really needed those monies throughout the year to to help us with these organizations. And if it wasn't for the money we were receiving from the PRD, we wouldn't have grown the geopark and maybe the museum to the levels we've had. So, you know, I think we're just a little bit of a different case. So, I mean, if this council was gonna go the way where we're just gonna take charge and take care of these groups ourselves, then we would have a whole different outlook on ECDEV. But it's the fact that we rely on those monies to sustain our organizations. So it's kind of hard to make that call, because in my head, I'm thinking of what we need it for, but down the road, do we really need ECDEV?
Yeah, it's difficult to figure out, absolutely. Councillor Kirk.
Yeah, so just a couple things. So when I talked about opt-in and opt-out, I don't talk about the one person that sits as a chair, community by community. Just like Mayor Butcher mentioned, they brought it back, it needs to be the community vote, or people that have been voted in by the public in our community to actually opt in. And then the community, whoever is in the chair, would go back and opt in on behalf of this council or whatever council.
Which I do.
That's why I like to opt in and opt out, because it's the support. You look at the people that have supported when you watch the PRD in regards to Tumbler Ridge, and I think that's a benefit. So, and I agree with Councilor Kirby when we talk about, is it a regional thing when it comes to our museum and our geopark? Absolutely. Like, I mean, again, I'd love to have the stats of how many people flew into Fort St. John's Airport to come to the geopark at Tumbler Ridge. We don't have those numbers. I bet you it's higher than we all think. And that is the closest airport besides Grand Prairie. So I think it's totally regional, and I really hope the PRD sees it that way and supports it. Like their community, like, the rural areas support it, like the residents. My thing is, when it comes to that, I would not be interested in not having our own active boots on the ground in Tumbler Ridge.
Right.
So when we talk about one of the options through the PRD was to have a tab down there with a border the whole south piece and north piece of Forever Community. I wouldn't be in favor of that personally, as a voter body for here is no way. Like, to me, I think that's a staff position within Ms. Thompson's staff that is boots on the ground. We're taking direction, you know, through our policies or motions and everything else through Ms. Thompson, and then they go to work. I don't think we're gonna have the same pull when you have just one person doing that job in the PRD.
Yeah, I think it's just too diverse of a region, and you know, each municipality is unique in some ways, so it would get very convoluted. I agree. Councillor Nobre?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Is there an opportunity to fund our geopark and museum through this $500,000 budget they're creating? If your proposal for a function does not go.
To be honest, we haven't got that far yet. There isn't any type of a granting policy within the function. There isn't any kind of a financial model yet whatsoever, so it's really just a concept at the moment. I would assume if an economic development model comes through the regional district that there would be some type of a granting policy within that function. But for me to assume that this model could fund both organizations, I would have to err on the side of caution and say no. The $500,000 that they've proposed is just a number. It's a proposal. It's certainly not set in stone. You know, and one of the other things as far as the museum and geopark function coming up, the directors will be able to set the maximum amount requisitioned so that we do have a set number each year as well. So to answer your question, I really don't know because it's still in concept phase. Councillor?
The reason why I mention it is like just crunching the numbers, right? Like the number they had in the letter works out, you know, $5-6 a household depending on your value. Our community is going to spend $64,000, potentially getting us back more than that. Seems like a wise investment, but if you don't know what that option is, it's hard to support it unless we know we're going to get our dues out of it, right? So yeah, until there's a little more clarity on making sure that we're going to get our bang for our buck, I don't know if I can support it.
Yeah, and it's really still in the concept phase, like I said. And again, the budget is a proposal, but you know that $500,000 budget would certainly include the wages of the staff member, I would assume. So yeah, you know, as far as the money being granted, it would have to be requisitioned in order to be granted. It's still all up in the air at the moment, so it's really just trying to gain a flavor of each council and what they see economic development on a regional basis. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Since we're talking about the budget, it says first draft on page 56. For presentation on February 21st, do we get that presentation as well? Just because there is a couple questions I have on that, and one is actually the grant writer we pay into for $8,000.
Don't pay into that.
We do not one?
No,
Okay.
because we have our own.
Okay, so that one's wrong.
We could choose
We could choose.
to pay into it,
Okay,
don't.
okay. Then connectivity, will they give us an update on stuff like what they've been doing with that money that we put in towards it, or
Pardon me, sorry?
are they going to give us an update on what that money's been, what it was put towards, if we do get a presentation?
Yeah, so the first draft for presentation, February 21st, 2018, so that would have been the presentation of first draft budget to the board, the directors at the regional district. So that we won't be getting a presentation.
We won't get one in 2022?
No, we'll be meeting as a board to look at first draft of their budget in February. And then I can bring that back to council to review in that, but I haven't requested a presentation.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions, council? I do like that idea, Councillor Kirk, opt in, opt out. You know, it's certainly something that I will bring back to them because it has been discussed as well that it was favorable. Councillor.
Just think they have to set it up during the meeting. It's not just the person that's voted by council. In the municipalities that the chair of the PRD, that it would be the, you know, because everybody in our council, 7 votes.
Sorry.
You know, we pass it, you know, 4 votes to pass something, is that right?
Absolutely.
But I mean, if they talk about this grant aid, which I see on their site, that they're doing grant aid right now, for rural, we're not including that. Why could not same thing be added?
The
Right,
grant, the
Right, the same,
granting.
yeah, right, the same kind of concept that they had in the past, which they were doing that wasn't right. They found out that we shouldn't be doing it this way, but is there a way of making sure it's the legal way of doing it, right?
By creating this new function.
Right?
Yeah.
And then just having it so it's done.
That's right.
I mean, I have a problem supporting the concept of having an ACDEV that works for the PRD, but that's oversees every municipality's ACDEV function. We have a different onset or different scenario in Tumbler Ridge than they have in Fort St. John or Dawson Creek, even Chet and Tater Hudson, right? We all have something different for ourselves. I mean, ours is our Geopark Museum, you know, our walking trails, you know. Fort St. John.
I agree.
So, to me, when they have that one function as that individual, try to do all those.
Absolutely.
I don't think we get a good bang for our buck.
I agree. And it will create a lot of unfairness throughout the region too. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions, Councillor?
So what are we looking for here from us?
Feedback.
No motions, no nothing, just feedback.
Just need feedback. Yeah. Councillor Majinski.
Sorry to bother you again about this, but the budget work paper, is this the most current one, or do we have a new current one? Because it says,
Yeah, that's 2018.
can we,
This is just for reference.
yeah, can we get an updated one? Yes,
2022?
or 21 even?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that'd be,
but what exactly are you looking for, sorry?
well, it just says like all participating and it's right across the board is a flat rate, and we're in on 2018. I just want to know when we changed that.
When,
You know what I mean?
when this function blew up in 2019,
Okay, so then so we should probably have a current one then if we're gonna be,
but there isn't one because we can't do it. All the surplus from the function was divvied back out to all the
so is,
members,
okay.
and it's been shut down. So there isn't a current one.
So everything's put in holding then for all, so we haven't contributed in the last 3 years?
For ECDEV, correct. 2 years. Any other questions? I know this is a bit confusing, so I'll certainly try to answer any questions you have. Councillor Lehman.
Well, I've been trying to find, there was something in here about they were giving out money to Tumbler Ridge, but they actually weren't supposed to because Tumbler Ridge wasn't a part of this in the beginning.
So that's part of the letters of patent. So whenever a function was created at the regional district, there are existing letters of patent, they call it, that really outlines the function and what it serves, what purpose it serves. It was created in 1977. Tumbler Ridge wasn't created yet. So, yeah, it was pretty complicated.
So they were actually giving out money to Tumbler, even though they weren't supposed to, or?
To some degree,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, I will take that feedback, thank you. 5.2, City of Dawson Creek bid to co-host 2023 NCLGA. City of Dawson Creek is requesting consideration to co-host the 2023 NCLGA AGM. Councillor North.
Mayor Bertrand. Do we have information on how much this would cost us, or if we're going to be hosting any of the events of the NCLGA?
Ms. Thompson, are you aware?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. The last time that the district of Tumbler Ridge participated as a co-host was in 2016, and we don't have the numbers available of what the cost was to the district.
Councillor, and follow-up, Councillor Norbury?
Yeah, just my comment regarding that is, if it's not here, why would we co-host something that won't get any economic benefit? If something was here, and, we could see some fallout to our local businesses, it makes sense to support it, but, if it's all in Dawson Creek, it sounds like maybe Dawson Creek wants a hand. And,
Okay. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. We co-hosted with Dawson Creek in 2016. We did see some economic benefit because we provided tours. We were part of a tour that buses came in. We toured the geopark. There was other options to go for hikes, etc. here in town. You also get time to speak if you want to present anything at the conference itself. Councillor Scott and myself did a few things out there with them. It was a great experience. It does cost, and it does take a lot of planning, and so that's just something to think forward to. Like, you're going to need staffing, and I can't remember. I think it was $10,000 we put in. I'm guessing to put into that. It could have been more, but it was a time to showcase our community. We had an accessibility bus that came up that could tour people around, also, which was a big hit because we were the first community to do that, so that everybody could participate in our tours and what we offered. So it's a chance to highlight our community. So I would be for that, but I would like staff to really have the opportunity to check in and see what it all entails before we would make a decision. But I guess it's coming down to a crunch if they want to submit a bid. And it was ourselves and Pooskupi and Chetwynd. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if staff's been in contact with Dawson Creek, because it says in their letter here that they'd like to hear back before January 3rd, 2022.
Oh.
And if it's still open, it's that's what it says in their letter. Please get back to us on or before January 3rd.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So, yes, staff did speak with the City of Dawson Creek staff as well, and said that we weren't able to have a decision by December 3rd, and that we would be late in responding to them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
So I kind of feel like Councillor there. To me, I'd like to know what the amount that we would be looking at contributing first before we can even create it. And I remember when I was here last time, sure, they came up with tours and stuff. You hope they came back, because what was the economic growth for our businesses in Tumbler Ridge, or even the residents? If they were on free hikes and stuff like that, free tours of the museum and so on. They didn't stay the nights, they didn't stuff, right? So is there, we opt in, can we get more out of it? can we have half the conferences here? We have a great conference room across the street from Town Hall here. But again, staff time, I believe was quite huge last time. That was not included in the fee, in the amount that we gave. So I think those are the two numbers we need to know before we can opt in. But
Okay. Myself, I'm not really in favor of this, to be honest. I don't see the direct benefit that our businesses in town would see from this. I think, you know, being a co-host to this type of an event, I think would really just give the event organizers a destination for extracurricular tours, or, you know, I think we host pretty much the entire Peace region anyway as far as the weekends go, so that would be my guess. But no, I'm not really interested in this. But I do understand numbers talk, and it would be interesting to see what the contribution was. Ms. Thompson, in your communications with City of Dawson Creek, did they mention any type of funding models?
Thank you, Member Trent. We don't know anything of the funding models or an expectation for contribution at all yet.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Member Trent. I think if we were to decide to opt in, it would also take council members to sit on the planning committee. And that's where you would, you know, figure out how you're gonna, you know, hold events. And what it was with us last time, we did a tour that went from Dawson through to Tumbler, through to Chetwynd and back. And then there was another tour that did Site C, so you could opt into two. So, that's just another thought. So it takes council time as well.
Councillor Kirk.
yeah, and I guess we gotta be careful here when we're making motions or opting into things in 2023. I mean, there's election in 2022. So I'm curious how that works. I mean, my understanding is we could opt into something for council coming in, is my understanding. If I can't make a vote or a motion that makes them do something that they want to do, is that not a thing or no?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. I'm just trying to process the question. So, I mean, if this current council has, like, I think what you're getting at is, like, the council changes next October maybe, and council would be deciding on something that would happen within a couple months with the new council coming in, correct? And can you actually bind a future council to an expense? Is that what you're, okay, okay, sorry. So, when it does come to decisions like that, because it is within a definitive time frame, would be within a year. You can't bind council for a lot, like an extended future time, but you can actually decide that, yes, in this time frame we're going to do this. So binding at that point is still all right. It's not outside.
Councillor?
Yeah, and thank you for the clarity, because that's one of the thoughts I had was, how do we do that? My question, I guess, would be to staff, do we need a motion to get more information back from Dawson Creek? I mean, to me, like, again, I'd like to know what the amount they're looking for, and then what it is in it for our community. And if it's just a tour and such like Councilor Kirby is mentioning, that might be fine, but let's find out what the amount is, and if we need a motion, I'm prepared to make it. Because to me, we need that information before we can really vote on it. Like, I mean, we think it's $10,000, but if staff doesn't have that number, I mean, I would think that's gotta be within our finance. I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand everybody's been on holidays, so you can't expect them to jump that in when they've only been back for a few days, so that's an important number to know.
Sure. I would be surprised, honestly, to learn if there is a budget, but Ms. Thompson, do we need a motion for more information? Councillor Kirk.
Make a motion that staff reach out to Dawson Creek in regarding co-host of the 2023 NCLGA EGM, and what the cost for co-hosting, and if what's involved in regards to the co-host.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Lehman, discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay. Moving on, 5.3, PNG discussion. Motion to discuss, seconded. Councillor Lehman, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Kirkowka.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Council, for letting us be added. I think you've all seen it. I think maybe not expecting it and coming out last minute, it's hard to get it added or have staff add it to an agenda when pretty much the agenda was already made. So not to put staff on the spot, but I think council should discuss this. Maybe we should be sending a letter from our municipality. I've got it up on my phone now. I understand that we can go through the Utilities Commission, put in our comments there. But maybe we should be sending a letter from municipality in regards to what it's doing. I mean, that's more money. And it's $84 for residential. That doesn't include businesses.
That's right.
Like businesses are like 300 and something. So, I understand P&G, they need to make sure they hit their bottom dollar or whatever number they need to have. But we also are all going through COVID just like the rest of the country. And, I have a hard time understanding how we can keep increasing and increasing. And it's the deliveries. It's not the amount of gas you use, it's the delivery of it. Mm-hmm. And we're paying a huge delivery cost.
Yep.
I mean, I pay more personally and business-wise for delivery than I do even for the gas that goes through my furnaces.
Yep.
So, I'm just curious what council thinks. I mean, it came out short. I mean, I believe I seen this on Monday, so I think I seen it on Friday. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, myself, I'm pretty disgusted with it. I have done some research in regards to midstream companies. From what I can gather, the reason our rates are so high is because P&G is operating a plant in order to deliver gas to us. In other larger centers, they're able to straight pipe tap into the main line, so they don't need to process it. They can access processed gas already. But for midstream companies, I was told that they're guaranteed profit by the province, so whatever it costs, they're allowed to include that cost plus a profit margin on their delivery rates. And I believe ours are so high in the region because we're not able to tap into the main line, and P&G needs to operate a plant. So I completely agree with you, Councillor Kirkowka. I think we do need to send a very strongly worded letter to the Utilities Commission from the municipality explaining our concern and our frustration and the unfairness of it. Ms. Thompson, I know there was some work being done as far as intervener status. Can you update us on that, please?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So staff have, it is one of the lower priorities at this time with everything else that had been going on, but we do have information we have gathered on the intervener status. And from my understanding, before I got to Tumbler Ridge, that there was a presentation that was brought forward from P&G saying what the rates were going to be for Tumbler Ridge. We haven't actually found that that presentation yet, or that letter that they say that had come out. So that is something that it is on our back burner. It hasn't been a priority for us at this time.
I think it would have been something similar to what we've all received currently. Notice of rate change and looking for feedback. I don't recall a specific delegation presentation by P&G. I could be wrong, but Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Councillor Kirby made a notice of motion a while ago that we're to approach BCUC about the delivery rates. Isn't that correct?
Yep.
And what's the progress on that? I understand this is probably before you came, Ms. Thompson, but
No.
I thought we already had a course of action we were going down with this. I was kind of curious of the status.
Ms. Thompson, I believe that's the intervener. Is that correct? Can you explain the intervener? It's kind of confusing. Please.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I can actually explain all that. I had assigned it to a staff member, so I'm not able to explain all that goes in it. There's an application that is made though to the BC Utilities Commission that you have a concern about the cost and the rates that are there. Then they schedule a hearing if they feel that it is at that, you have valid reasons for it, and you go through a process like that. So that's my general understanding of it, but I don't know how long the process is, I had passed that to a staff member to work on.
So do you feel that the intervenor status would suffice, or would another letter from the municipality convolute the process of intervenor status? Because it seems like intervenor status to me is basically a formal complaint process. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. You know, with that, I mean, we should be encouraging everyone to go online and fill out the response. I know I did. People can come see me. I can help them do it. You know, let's get them back. But I think we should be, just hit them. Just do it again. Doesn't matter. Be politely annoying.
Correct. Councillor Kirkowka?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, and I agree with you, Councilor Norbury. I know I've seen a lot of the comments. I mean, you can watch Facebook if you want. But, you know, I did get some private messages and private texts. What can council do? Well, it's not just us. Every resident, every business owner should be putting their comments in. So I guess back to staff, when we talk in regards to the intervenor status, it has to be done by January 31st of 2022 is the deadline. So I'm curious if we can find out where we sit on that part of it, because then also up to Wednesday, April 13th, 2022 deadline is for the intervenors to file the information request number to P&G. It's right on their website as well. So I'd just be curious if we don't lose traction of that, because I do remember Councillor Kirby bringing that forward. And I think it's very, very important when we realize that residential's is 11.2% increase. When we talk about small commercial building or bills, the impact increase is approximately $319 or 10.5% increase. That's huge.
Huge.
Huge. So I think as a municipality, not only see businesses impacted with that amount, so do we. So does the municipality buildings get to see all that? I mean, I'm not sure if we have one bill that comes to the district, or if we're billed by building, or billed by building by building. And if it's by building, our increase is huge, just to the district's impact on a bill.
Cumulative, yep.
Yep. So I think it's very important to understand that it's on the back burner, and understand staff is full. But if we need a motion to move this from a back burner to the front burner, I'm prepared to make that as well.
Okay. Ms. Thompson, were you aware of that January 30th deadline?
I was not.
Okay. Councillor Kirby?
That's good. Councillor Kirkowka put the dates forward that I was going to.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
So I guess just back to staff, can that deadline be met? I understand the capacity, I understand all that, so I'm not trying to nag about it, but if it's a point that we need to decide what we leave off the table to have this done, I think it's very, very important.
I agree. Ms. Thompson?
We will ensure that we meet the deadline January 31st.
Okay, thank you. I agree. I think that intervenor status is critical. It's been an issue for a couple of years now, and the Utilities Commission needs to know that we're not happy here. Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. There's actually a resident in town that did a bunch of legwork on this a few months ago, and she might be a good person to get in contact with, and that's Maxine. She had quite a bit of information, and she had talked to some of the people at P&G. So I think that's maybe something worth looking into, and she would see information she has available.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, Councillor
Should
Norbury?
we make a motion to send a letter to BCUC?
I think we should, yes.
I don't want to take Councillor
Nope,
Cup's.
give her.
Councillor Norbury?
I'll make a motion that the District of Tumbler Ridge send a letter to BCUC regarding the proposed increases in the rates, and we are unhappy with that change.
Completely dissatisfied to the point of, yes. Seconder? Councillor Lehman, discussion? Councillor Norbury?
Maybe we should change unhappy to just against. Rather take out feelings, just against. I don't know. That's maybe splitting hairs, but I think maybe we should make an amendment to change unhappy to against the change.
Okay, second for the amendment. Councillor Kirby, discussion on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Carried, thank you. You hearing something?
Anybody else hear that? Maybe something fall through the roof. Can you hear
Yeah,
that?
maybe.
Maybe it's one of the elves.
Okay. Anyway.
Okay, anyways. Discussion on the amended motion. All in favor of the amended motion? Carried, thank you. All right, 5.4, snowmobile management plan. Motion to discuss, seconder, Councillor Leginski. All in favor? Carried, thank you. So, as you all know, I sat on the Snowmobile Advisory Committee for the South Peace. We put in over 500 hours with all of the Peace Region snowmobile clubs and the BC Snowmobile Federation to put together a recommendations report for the four parties, SOTO, West Moberly, federal government, provincial government. It was very well thought out of. It was very well done and a lot of buy-in by the clubs. The clubs realized caribou protection is important, and we're willing to give and take for caribou habitat protection. And the four parties decided to double our recommendations as far as closures go. And now the provincial government decided before Christmas, right before Christmas, to drop the hammer and put in the restrictions of closures. And as well, they've completely ignored all of our suggestions as far as enhancements goes to each individual riding area and blanketed $150,000 pot of money for each club to access for enhancements. That's not going to go very far. It's pretty much a slap in the face. And as well as there's a few key pieces that are missing here. I also sit on the economic recovery, the socioeconomic committee in regards to this management plan. It was always understood by the committee members that the findings from the socioeconomic plan would be presented along with all of the other information to the minister before the decision was made. And that's obviously not the case because we still have another socioeconomic meeting tomorrow that I plan on showing my frustration or explaining my frustration. So it's really disturbing to me that this has gone ahead with zero education, zero informing the public of where and what is closed. The maps are very confusing as usual, and honestly, I don't know how the government is planning to notify or put up signage on all the areas that are closed because it's so vast. It's very disappointing. So, after this decision came out, I was called by CBC for interview. Many of the regional mayors called myself to see if we were going to prepare a press release or anything. Honestly, I was so upset before Christmas that I didn't want to use my anger in a press release, so I didn't bring this forward. But the regional district is planning a response to the province. I believe it's on this week's agenda. So I'm just wanted to ask everyone's opinion and whether or not you feel we should be sending a letter to the province and the premier in regards to this. It's quite a significant closure. The government says that, the provincial government says that only 30% of the riding area has been affected and closed. And I strongly disagree with that because the 70% that is open isn't accessible because you have to go over high altitude terrain. So that was part of the Snowmobile Advisory Committee's recommendations, was to create legal access trails over that alpine to get to the open riding areas. It was completely so it's very misleading as far as their ratios go. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Could you describe, or do you have an idea that you could let us know what areas are closed or how it affects us? Because like you said, the map was very unclear to me.
Yeah.
So just our riding area around Tumbler?
Yeah, so we have, I would say 4 or 5 main riding areas. There's Bull Moose, Wolverine, Core Lodge, Sekunka, and probably out the Wapiti area kind of thing, right? Most of Bull Moose is closed. The back of Wolverine is open, but not accessible. And Core Lodge, which in the data, the collar data that the government collects every year, Core Lodge was one of the most highly trafficked area of Caribou. We've been sledding there for 30 years, and because of our, because it was such a significant area to ride in for our area and our tourism, the parties decided to keep that area open. So it would appear that the only real area to ride that's family friendly is Core Lodge. So it's the open areas now are very technical and not family friendly. So it's certainly going to affect riding in the area, especially when we were just voted in 2019 sledding capital of BC, right? So it's a major blow, definitely. Councillor Lehman, then Majinski, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, every time the government comes out with something like this, whether it's Caribou or snowmobiling, whatever, they always want public consultation and input, yet they never listen. It never amounts to anything. I just don't understand why we even bother. Like, you said you spent $500 trying to, give them information, but they don't use it. They choose not to. And it seems to be happening all the time. It doesn't matter what it is. They want input, but they ask for input, but they don't want it. So what's the point? It's mind-boggling that they just, we want to listen to you, but in the end, they don't. It's just, thank you very much and have a nice day. So, I think a letter, or at least a letter, and not a very nice one either.
I agree. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor. With your meeting with the Social Economic Impact Committee, are you guys planning on doing a press release through that?
No, I'm going to vent tomorrow afternoon, and then I'm going to take myself off of that committee because I don't see any point of it whatsoever anymore.
Then one more question. Would it be advantageous to reach out to the snowmobile clubs and get their thoughts and maybe even have them as a delegation? Make it more of a community thing, and then see, because I know if we do get people coming down from Fort St. John, Grand Prairie, wherever, sledding out here, and then they get these big fines, we're the ones, because it's in our backyard, we're the ones that are going to get the bad rap for it. Mm-hmm. And I can see that happening. Mm-hmm. And that's what, it's not going to help our tourism.
No.
And that worries me, so I think we should make this, public. If CBC did reach out to you, then I think we should go that way, and it just shows that they don't listen, so it's frustrating.
It's very frustrating, yeah. Councillor Kirby, then Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I was just going to comment on CBC as well, but I think after your meetings with the PRRD and the socio-economic group that you sit on, get the information, and I do think we need to have a voice in that. And as hard as it is to sit on some of these groups, I think still sitting there and having input is better than backing out myself. And I think it's a benefit to sit on that. And if you don't stand up and say what is kind of in Tumbler's favor and represent the groups, then, that's what we're here to do. So I would I would hope that you would stay on that and see what these other, PRD says and talk with CBC because that's the only way we're going to see change, I think.
If council would like me to continue on that group, absolutely, I certainly could. But like I said, the decision's been made. Honestly, I don't see the purpose of it anymore, so, but if council would like me to, I certainly can. Councillor Norbury, then Kirk.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. And it's like the comment on like the importance of snowmobiling in our area, right? Like it's a big part of our tourism. It's why people come here. Every time you're out of town, there's a dozen trucks coming in loaded up with snowmobiles, so it's super important. But when it comes to our voice, like we're just a drop in the bucket. I think I saw the David Suzuki Foundation has taken on this cause. So you have all these people from these major centers that are wanting to save the caribou when they need to be listening to the people who are directly affected by it, right? And how it does. We should definitely be getting our opinion out there and telling the government our boots on the ground say we need this. We definitely want to support caribou. We have in other areas like the penning projects and in partial closures. I know the mines have done a lot of sacrificing in terms of keeping areas open for them. But like, what's the science behind this, or is this just a political, emotional decision? Right?
No, there is science behind it. It's been going on for quite a few years. This management plan has been in the works for 3 years now. There's certainly not. It's not a political move. It's a petition to the federal government by West Moberly and Soto to protect caribou and habitat, and that's really the focus and the priority of the provincial government to do that. So. All of those concerns and comments have been shared already through their what we heard process within this management plan, and so I don't think we need to reiterate that. In my opinion, I just think we need to send our displeasure in a very well worded, professional way, like Ms. Thompson is very good at doing. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up with that, I think if anything we've learned now, the offset cost, right? Like, what is this value versus that value, right? We talk a lot about economic sustainability in our communities, and
the provincial government, in my opinion, is willing to trade off that negative financial impact. They are certainly willing to do that in order to protect this species and habitat. So it's quite clear with the decision coming down before Christmas there. So, Councillor Kirk, then Kirby.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a couple things. I totally agree that we should be writing letters. We have a geopark that everybody thought when the geopark first started, there'd be no quality, no sledding, no this, no that. And that's how open they are to being partnerships with our sledding groups and our ATV groups. So when it comes to that, I think it's very, very important. But it also very, very important for people that sled, buy memberships. No voice unless you have a membership. Okay, so that's huge. And they talk about that and talk about that and talk about it. You don't have to have a sled to have a membership. But it's another voice. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about how clubs and organizations are losing their voices with the government or organizations like that because they don't have enough memberships paid for. So that's the big thing, is to push people that do sled. Even if you don't sled, go buy a membership. It gives them another name attached to that membership number. So I think that's something that we need to, I agree with when Councilman Jin says bring in our sledding groups there and have delegations. That's something we can probably help with, is the membership drives. Try to put some dollars towards a membership drive on that behalf to try and get their membership numbers up. Whether it's some signage out at the riding areas or whatever it may be. But there's people that obviously come to the area that sled in the backcountry, but they don't have memberships. Mm-hmm. And my thing, and I kind of disagree with Councilman Jin, says to give us a bad name or a bad rep when these people come sledding in our area and they get a big ticket. Know before you sled, just like know before you shoot the gun. Like, I'm sorry, that is up to the sledders. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, if you're not a member, they should be a member because they have it all over the sledding Facebook page of all the closures and stuff. So I think our letter should also state in regards to when you guys sat and talked about having trailways to get to the areas that are closed. I think that needs to be well put in that letter about that.
Revisited.
100%, because I mean, you can close down a small area and have a big area open behind it, but if you can't get to the big area that's open legally, to me, that's a trap. You know, whether that's a trap for the conservation's office to be able to write tickets and confiscate your sleds. I don't know. That's what it seems like to me, a trap.
Absolutely.
So I think that needs to be spoken in a letter that, you know, whether it's even on the lower part of the terrain to get to that riding area, it should be open doors. I think sledding tourism is huge in our community, and I don't think we want to lose sight of what staff has done. In my opinion, we had wasn't it last year when we had the sleds up on Town Hall here?
2019.
Right? The video made. I've watched some of it so far. That's been shared on Facebook. So, you know, when we put dollars to that through ActDev, and then we get this. I mean, we talk about let's not waste dollars. We wasted dollars, which what the government just did by not allowing us to get into an area that's open because the area before it's closed. So I do think we should invite the sledding group in here though, maybe before we write the letter so we can get their feedback as well, so we have that letter, make sure we're not wording something wrong.
That's a good idea.
Yes, or hurting that their side of their membership drive or something.
That's a good idea.
I'm in support of it.
Okay. Councillor Kirby, then Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Can you tell me again what the $150,000 you said they were offering, what that was for again?
Yeah, so throughout the process, there was a give and take. There was an offer by the provincial government to provide funding to each snowmobile group for enhancements of some degree, whether it be trail building, whether it be a new warm-up cabin, whatever it might be. Each group came up with areas that are missing these types of amenities and proposed maybe a cabin here or a trail here. It was all very well documented in the advisory committee's report, and instead of picking out or following through with the recommendations by the committee, the government just blanketed $150,000 to each group for enhancements. So, I mean, it is an investment, but it doesn't go very far.
Sure doesn't. And you know what, just as to the snowmobile group, it doesn't do anything for the lost revenue we have as a community on, you know, hotel stays, fuel, whatever. And I think if anything, that's kind of a joke of a number. And maybe that's another way to fight back too, is say that doesn't even hit the target.
No, and you know, that's been the feedback throughout this entire process, right from when the snowmobile advisory committee was presented the draft management plan after it went from the parties. It was just complete shock and awe, honestly, from all the committee members. All of the groups were very upset. It was like we wasted our time for over a year to really put together a report and recommendations that not only the clubs would support, but the clubs felt that the public would be able to support as well. It was balanced. This isn't balanced. I agree. So, Councillor Majinski.
Just one quick question on the memberships, and with the snowmobile club, the memberships are quite high, in my opinion. So as a non-member, to pay $100 a year is quite a bit. I think we should come up with maybe a alternative recommendation for the snowmobile club as like a member fee as a non-user, so that you can boost up your numbers, so that when you petition and you have all these numbers on paper, there's something else. You know, like even if it's a $20 fee and say, yeah, you are
Like an associate.
associate of the club.
Yeah.
And then that's extra money for the club as well, instead of the limited amount, because I think even this current season was only 100 members or something. It didn't jump a lot, even through all their petitioning with the caribou closures, and they said they need numbers to be active towards this, and they didn't get a lot. And I think they should have 10 times that for our area.
Yeah, and we had the resources of BC Snowmobile Federation, the provincial federation as well, so it's not like we weren't well represented there. Councillor Kirk.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we need a motion to invite TR Ridge riders in for delegation, or staff just reach out, or if there's another motion.
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, We can just reach out to them.
Okay, thank you. Counselor?
And just a thing on there, I mean, I think that's a good thing for the delegation to bring up, Councilor Majinski, when we talk $100 to be a member there, that's helps them for fuel for the grooming, all their signage, their woods, their upkeep of all their safety sheds in the backcountry. I mean, that's nothing none of that's cheap. We all use it. I'm not even a sledder, and I've used that in regards to an emergency, and that's what it's there for. So I think it's fairly cheap. I mean, I don't disagree that maybe that's not an idea to look at on their behalf or help them with it. I mean, I think when you look at the groom the trails, everything else for all these sledders to come into our community, I think it's pretty cheap. That's just my personal.
Yeah, and I do know that membership has increased over the last couple years to a pretty significant amount now. So it's, you know, it's not just 20 members. It's definitely over 100 now. So there is value there, but I agree. I think we should wait for the letter until we talk to them, and maybe we can put our heads together and come up with a plan there. So, Councilor Majinski.
Yeah, we could also add in trail fees, you know, that could be another one, not just memberships, there could be trail fees, there could be user.
That's up to
association.
the association. Yeah.
But, you know, and those guys that are on that, they're very well aware of what happens down in Revelstoke and
Sure.
and they know all that. They're all well connected too, so they can pull from those clubs too, right? So.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for that. All right, resolution to closed. I'll move the meeting of the District of Tumbler Ridge Council scheduled for January 10th, 2022 will be closed pursuant to the Community Charter, Section 91K as follows. Negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that, in the view of council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality if they were held in public. Seconder, Councillor Kirk. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 10-minute recess, please.